Hey folks, welcome to my new show called Power Tips. The idea behind this show is to guide you through the basics of Power Platform and how you can become a developer within this space. So everything from basics of getting started, like from creating an environment, then using the environment to create applications, to create components, how to do deployments, how to write your code. We would be covering each and every basics that is needed to become a better developer. So follow along this journey. This is the first video, and in this video I'm going to showcase you what are the different URLs that are available in Power Platform, and we would also look at how to create your own developer environment. Now this developer environment will be the basics of all the future videos that I would be doing, where you could create components and applications and whatever, right? So whatever Power Platform has to offer, we would be doing everything from this particular environment. So it's going to be your everything you're going to do from this environment. So let's see what are the different URLs that are available when we are dealing with Power Platform. So let's get started. First URL that we are going to look at today is called Makers Portal, commonly referred as Makers Portal, and the URL is make.powerapps.com, and I misspelled it. So make.powerapps.com. Now this URL enables you to create applications, create chatbots, AI builder, flows, solutions, and whatnot. This is, if you are a developer, this is where you would be mostly going to land, and you would be doing most of your work using this URL. So as you can see on the top right corner, we have the environments, and this is called the developer environment, which we are going to create at the end of this video. Now in this developer environment, we can do whatever we want, and you can see that this is a developer environment and it is not meant for production use. This is just for your learning purposes. Now this particular thing gets highlighted in a different color, slightly different color. That's called your environment switcher. So if you click on it, you would see that the environment switcher brought up a new panel where you have list of all the environments. Now you would only see the environments if you are a system admin or a system customizer on these environments. Only then you would be able to see the environments over here. Now the default environment would always show up to anyone who has the Power Apps license. And the developer environment is where you would be doing most of your things. Now let's close out this environment selector because we are going to use this particular environment. So anytime you come to make.powerapps.com, the recommendation is to always check which environment you are working off. Sometimes if you are a system admin on dev, QA, and UAT, you don't want to create components in a QA or UAT environment. So making sure that you are using the proper environment is always recommended. So make that as a practice, make that as a habit to always, whenever you log into your make.powerapps.com, your eyes should go on the top right corner just to see and confirm whether you're on the right environment. The other thing that I would like to do is whenever I am creating the bookmarks, I create the bookmarks based on the environments. If you can see in the address bar, every environment is having a unique GUID. It has a unique ID, and that's what you can bookmark. So if you want to always work on developer environment, or let's say you are working on dev, I would recommend creating a bookmark which is just for dev with that specific ID. So you would not make those mistakes of logging into a different environment and creating components in a totally wrong environment, right? Especially when you have access to UAT and prod. Don't want to do that, right? Then the basic thing that you would work on is on the left hand navigation panel, which is over here. And if you want to learn some things, you can click on learn, and then it has guided learning, help topics, and then you can also join a community. That community is really awesome community. You can learn so many things, you can ask questions, and there are so many people who are active on the community. They respond sometimes even within an hour, right? So it's a very active community. So give it a try, join the community, be part of it. The second thing that you would need is the apps. Now you would see all the apps that you have created in here, or the apps that have been created by someone else but shared with you would also appear in this list. And there is the component libraries, which I don't want to go into those details as of today, but then we would look into component libraries at some point in future. Just remember that today we are just going to cover the basics. So apps, right? Just look at the apps. These are the things where you can access your apps. You can look at the types of apps, model driven, canvas. You can also look at some of the portal stuff. Like if you have a portal app created, you would also see portal app here as well. Now, when you go to create, the create option, you see three options. You can create canvas apps, you can create model driven apps, you can also create portals. So whatever the choices. But if you are doing development, I would advise against creating any of those over here, right? There's a reason. I'll get back to that in a minute. But I don't use these options ever. If I'm creating something on dev environment as a developer, I don't like to create applications here. I'll show you where I like to create the applications in a minute. I would like to go through all the other options that are available here as well. So data is the next, tables, choices, data flows, Azure Synapses link, connections, custom connectors, and gateways. These are some of the things that are available to you if you have the developer environment created with the database associated to it, and these are part of the Dataverse, right? Again, I don't create my tables, choices in here. Those are just for references. If I want to find anything, I come here and look at it, but I don't create them here. I create it somewhere else, which we're going to look into it in a minute. Data flows, yes, you have to use, if you want to use data flows, you come here, you create your data flows, and then if you are going to use Azure Synapses link, then that option is available here as well. Azure Synapses, again, we are not going to go into it. We are going to go into it at some later point when we become an expert in Power Platform and everything to do with Power Platform, right? So all good. Then next is connections. Here is where you would see all the connections that I have used within this environment. So everything, if I've used it in flows, in canvas apps, in custom connectors, not custom connectors, but anywhere in the Power Platform, if I have used a connection, all those connections would show up here. So this is a nice place to look at all the connections that you have created. Then if you have created any custom connectors, those would appear on the custom connector link, and these are all the custom connectors available in the on this environment. Then is the gateway. Gateway is something that if you are connecting to Power Automate for desktop, then sometimes you would need those gateways to have the interactions, and that's where you would create gateways where you make your machine your server, and then you create a gateway on it. So you have to install gateway softwares and whatnot. Again, not going into it. We'll go into it at later point of time. Then is flows. Now here you would see the flows that are created by you but are not part of solutions, which is right over here. I again normally don't create flows from this UI. Now you would ask, I'm saying everything like apps, tables, choices, flows, I'm not creating it on there. Where am I creating this? So I'm going to skip chatbots and I'm going to skip AI builder for now. And I'm going to explain you something about solutions. So solution is where I would normally start my day. Okay. So you have managed solutions. Again, managed solutions, you cannot edit them. And then you have unmanaged solutions. So let me just search for unmanaged solution called demo. Okay, so this is my unmanaged solution demo. And if I have to do anything, like if I have to create an app, if I have to create a table, choices, flows, I normally create them in the solution. The reason is pretty simple. Solutions are deployable components. So if you want to deploy anything from dev to QA or QA to UAT, you are doing that using solutions, whether it be unmanaged solutions or whether it be managed solutions. Now, what is unmanaged and managed? You would be questioning yourself right now. Don't worry, we would look at all those details in future videos. Yeah. So just follow along. Yeah. Solutions is where you should be starting creating your components. So first thing you do, if you don't have a solution, you create a solution. So we would be creating a solution called Power Tips. Okay, and we'll be using this solution throughout our demos. So let's just call it as Power Tips. Now, if you don't have a publisher, you should create a publisher. Now, publisher is something that if you have a solution that is provided by Microsoft, then it would normally have MS as its prefix or MSDYN as a prefix, which means Microsoft for Dynamics. Similarly, if you are creating your own solutions, you should create your own publisher. Publisher is nothing but to differentiate different solutions and who is creating the solutions, who is the publisher for that solutions, right? Depending on what I'm doing, I normally typically create different publishers. I was actually trying to experiment it, come up with my own prefix. I was not liking it. So you would see a bunch of different publishers that I have created. So for example, like if I drop down this, you'll see Maverick, you'll see Power Maverick demo, Power Maverick. I was just experimenting. And then you'll see a lot of this publisher, Power Apps tools publisher as well. Okay. Nothing to do with that. What we would do is we would actually create a new publisher here. Or maybe I select the one that already exists. So I'm going to select Maverick. Maybe Power Maverick. I don't know. Keep on interchanging them because I keep forgetting which one is the one that I should be using. I should actually get rid of those incorrect publishers. But nonetheless, I've selected Power Maverick here. And then the version, any version that you want to provide, you can provide it here. Different companies have different nomenclatures for versioning. I've seen some people start with year, month, day, and then time or something at the end. It's up to you how you want to have your versioning schematic. I'm going to keep it simple. I'm going to just use 1.0.0.4 or 0, right? And then if you expand the more options, you can see there's a configuration page. Now, configuration page gives an option to provide a default configuration where you actually prompt your users to like, it's kind of a readme page. It's what the configuration page is. Or if you are creating an ISV solution, then in ISV solution, you want to configure certain components initially when you install the solution, or even throughout the solution, you want to, let's say, hide certain features or show certain features, or even do the registration process. All those can be done in the configuration page. Again, if it's for your learning purposes, totally okay to skip it. Don't even worry about it, what configuration page is. Provide your description and then hit create. Now, before I hit create, you would see that there's a package type. Now, package type is not editable, it's unmanaged, because every solution that you create in the instance is always unmanaged solution. So as I said, it's going to be unmanaged. So let's just create the solution. And I'm searching for demos. I should search for power tips. Okay, so there it goes. My solution is ready. Now once I open the solution, there would be nothing in it. It's going to be blank. That's okay, because we just created it. And then now you can see you can either create a new components, and there are like so many components. I lost count. I was actually keeping a count of it at some point, but I lost count of it. I don't know how many components are available in Power Platform as of now. We would probably learn that at some point. And then you can even add existing components to it as well. So if you have created any components which is not part of the solution, you can start including them in the solution too. We are not going to do anything today with this. We are just going to learn what URL to use and how to get started with it. Yeah. So make.powerapps.com. Remember that is your maker portal. The second URL that you would want to remember, or admins want to remember, is called admin.powerplatform.microsoft.com, or you can even omit the word Microsoft and you can just do admin.powerplatform.com. So if you do admin.powerplatform.com, it reroutes you to admin.powerplatform.microsoft.com. Now this URL helps you set up the environments. So helps you create new environments, manage existing environments, manage the settings. You can take backups of the environments. You can restore environments, and then do anything, whatever you want to do with the environments. You can do everything over here. Not only that, you also get some statistics. So for example, like your database space is running out. Where do you get the report of that? Here is where you would get those reports. How much space has been used, which tables are occupying what amount of space, those kind of questions. If you have those, this is where you would want to go. Yeah, you could set up your policies. Let's say you don't want anyone in your organization to use XYZ connector, or if some other connector, let's say AccuWeather connector, which is an independent connector, that connector can only be is very critical, let's say. So those kind of connectors then become part of that business category, and those kind of policies is what you would set. We would look into that in a minute as well. And then there is tons of admin center things, links to other admin centers. Yeah, pretty straightforward, simple, right? But before we go into all these details, we would like to see what are the options available to us when you are in the environment. So let's open up this developer environment. And in your developer environment, you can see that you get to see the environment URL. You get to see the refresh cadence, whether it is ready or not, what type of environment it is, what is the region, and if there are any security groups assigned to it. You also get this organization ID, which I've barely used. I don't remember where I've used it. Probably once or twice I have used it. Then you can enable your early access previews over here. So 2021 release wave 2 is enabled. If say there's 2022 release wave 1, then it will be switched off by default, and then you can go in and then switch it on. Okay, you can look at the operation history over here. Yeah, you can manage the access to different users by this users. You can manage the teams and the security roles as well. Then you get to see the Dynamics 365 applications installed on this environment, portals enabled on this environment, power apps created on this environment, and then flows. So you can get the links to those here as well. Now, environments themselves have some settings available to you, and that is where you can go to this settings option, and you would see different kind of settings. These are categorized in these sections, but then if you are not able to find anything, let's say I wanna now look at Teams integration. I don't know where it is, right? So probably it's in integration, but I'm not sure. So what I can do is I can just search for Teams, and then it shows up that Teams integration settings is under integration, which is where I was expecting it to be. And I can just open it up, and it takes me to the settings page. Or let's say I want to look at email settings. So if I want to look at email settings, I can just type in email, and then it shows me everything. And then there you go. Email settings is over here. And then I can look at everything that is related to email. Okay. The search feature is pretty nice. If you are coming from the older interfaces, you would remember that there was no search. So it was becoming very, you had to remember in which category exactly you have to go to get that option. But including this search is pretty fantastic. I love it. I use it all the time. So that's how your developer or your environment settings look like. You don't have to go to the old interface anymore. Most of the settings are available here. But then if you want to go to the old interface, you can open the environment. Okay. And then once the environment is open, and so yeah, that's the environment that opened up. You can click on this gear icon over here on the top right corner and go to advanced settings. Now this would take you to the classic interface. This would have a lot of those options available, like business, customizations, system, and whatnot, what you had here. But these are pretty much nicely categorized, whereas this is not. You don't get integrations and whatnot in here. They are hidden somewhere deep inside this interface. So it's nice to have the option of going back to the old interface if you're not able to find anything. But as far as I know, most of the settings are available on this new interface. So stick to the new interface. If you're not able to find anything using the new interface, then it makes sense to go to the old one. So always start with the new interface. Okay. Then I said you can look at how your Dataverse is performing, or how your apps are performing. Okay, so you go to Dataverse and you can see a lot of analytics about your Dataverse. How many active users, how many API calls, what is the API pass rate, how many executions and whatnot. So you can see a lot of those stuffs here, right? You can go and look at active users. These are all the other options that are available to you. So it's kind of a Power BI embedded here. And plugins, what are all the different plugins that are enabled, and then which is the most active ones and things like that. Then you go to Power Automate. Same thing, you get to see the analytics about Power Automate. You also get to see the analytics about your Power Apps. So whatever Power Apps you have created, you can see those here. Yeah. And the next option is the resources. Now this is very interesting because resources is where you can see the capacity that is available to you in your tenant. So this is a tenant level capacity. Yeah. So if you go to your capacity, you can see that it's showing you tenant level capacity. It's showing you user licenses, additional capacity that you have bought, and then the total capacity that you have for database logs and files separated out. And then you can go and look at all the other things. Now this is just giving you the summary view. You can actually go into the Dataverse and click on one of this environment that is available. So I'm going to pick this developer environment and then click on this details. Now once you click on the details, it shows you the statistics for that specific environment, like what is the top table database table capacity, or which is the most used table, which is my localized label. For some reason, I don't know why it's using the most 454 MB, but because my environment is developer environment, I see that this 0 MB usage because there is no capacity for the developer environment. But my default environment does have a capacity. So that's why I said, like, whenever you create your environment, you would also get a default environment. But don't work on default environment, because default environment has a capacity and you can only do so much on the default one, that it's better to create a developer environment and then work out of your developer environment instance. So the default one has the database usage, shows that we have 3 GB of free capacity. I've used only 745 MB out of 3 GB. That's because I don't use this environment at all. Whatever I do, I actually do it in the developer environment. Okay. Then you can go and look at the apps, which apps are enabled. If it's not enabled, you can enable them. And this is on the tenant level again, right? If you want to use them on the environments, you have to go to the environments, and then you would see this Dynamics 365 app that I was just showing before. That's where you would control which apps to load in that specific environments. This is to enable the apps on the tenant level. Then is the help and support. If you want to log a ticket or whatever, you can do it from here. Then I'm gonna skip the data integration and data part and then move on to the data policy. Now, data policies are great because that sets your policies on the tenant level. So for example, let's say I want to create a policy, say power tips, and so it shows you all the connectors that are available in the system, and you can choose which connectors you can move to business, which connectors you can block. So let's say, for example, I don't want my people to use Twilio. So I can search for Twilio. I can say, I don't want my users to use Twilio because the licensing is needed. So they have to go through certain hoops to get it, and then we can talk about it, right? So Twilio, we don't want it in our tenant, so we're gonna block it. So it goes to the blocked list. Then let's say I'm gonna use AccuWeather, and it's actually independent publisher published by Ahmed Najjar. So let's say I'm gonna move this to business. So moving this to business is actually meaning that we would be using sensitive data to connect to this connector, which means that I won't be able to share this connector with other people. Yeah, that's what it says over here. Okay, so I won't be able to share it with other groups or other people whenever I'm using this connector in an app or let's say a flow. Okay, and then I can go next. I can also set some rules around custom connector patterns. So let's say I don't want to use or if any of the connectors is using, let's say, open weather API, I don't want people to use open weather API. So I can say it's a new connector pattern, and I can say HTTPS open weather maybe api.openweather.com. If I'm creating a connector and then the host URL is api.openweather.com, it would be moved to the data group, and I can say it's going to be blocked, or I can say it's going to be business, things like that. Yeah, or I can say all. So I can say all my connectors are going to be in the business category. Okay, those kind of things. Then the next is I can define a scope, whether I want to add this policy on all the environments, or on some environments, or on all the environments except certain environments. So those are kind of the options that are available here. If you select any of these two options, you see that environments also shows up. So here I'm going to say add to multiple environments. Then I can choose multiple environments where this connection would be added. Okay, I'm not going to do that. And yeah, that were the two URLs that you need to remember. So the first one is make.powerapps.com. The second one is admin.powerplatform.com. Now, the next part is where you would be creating a developer instance. Now, this is the link. The link is provided in video's description as well. So if you're going to create an environment, what they say is you first need to have sorry, this is not the right link. This is the right link. So this is the link where you would say get started for free. So this is the URL that where you can actually create your developer instance, and the URL will be provided in the video's description. But the email address that you would need here is always going to be a work email, which means it's either going to be some contoso.com or something else. It cannot be outlook.com, hotmail.com, Gmail doesn't like it. It cannot be personal email. It has to be a professional work or organization email. Now, if you don't have an organization email, then you can create one pretty easily for your own sake, for learning purposes, by going to the Azure, like signing up for Azure. Signing up for Azure actually costs nothing. So what you could do is you could go to azure.com and say free account. Now I already have an account, so it won't allow me to do it. It will tell me I already have an account. But if you click on start free, you go through the process, it will tell you that you have free access to all the Azure resources, but then you still have to at the end provide a credit card. It's for validation purposes. So once you have gone through all those steps, you have created an Azure account, you can log into your Azure account using whatever credentials you have given, your personal credentials. You don't have to give any other credentials. You go to your, so you would end up having subscription, which you can see here right now. The subscription is pay-as-you-go subscription. Then you can go to this blade, this options, this navigation option over here, and select Azure Active Directory. In the Azure Active Directory, you can then create users. So once this shows up, you can go here and then create user. Now, as you can see, I have like tons of users created in the system. I can create one more user, and I can give power tips, and then you can select a domain. This would be the domain. So you would get some random domain initially. You can always change the domain later on once you have the once you have signed up and everything. You can create your own domain, but you can create a user over here. Once the user is created, then you can use that email address, which is now your work email. So in this example, I'm using powertips@powermaverick.dev. I can use that email then to register for this service. Then I go through next, go through account info, but you provide the account details, confirm it, and then that's it. Boom, you get a brand new Power Apps for Developer instance. If you have any questions, comment on the video and then I'll respond it with the steps if you get stuck anywhere. And as I said, all the links will be provided in the video's description, so do check them out. Now, if you have liked this video, then I'm pretty sure that you would like the 2 videos that I have provided over here as well. So do check them out. Until then, goodbye.